Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, and worldwide online at 1300WMEL.com. As always, sponsored by AVET Project. Folks, this program is all about supporting our troops and their families, both past and present. So please get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee or maybe an iced tea since it's a little warm out, and a pencil or paper to jot down a note or two, because we're always efforting to bring you important information that you can use and share with others. With that said, let's roll down the runway and get this show off the ground. Y'all know that are regular listeners to American Warrior Radio, my name is Garen Cohn. I'm an Air Force veteran, a retired legal advocate for veterans, and founder of AVET Project, but I never fly through the airwaves alone.
Good morning. I'm Glenn McGuffey, manager of your Brevard County Veteran Services team, and I'm retired Air Force, so as per usual, we have two blue suiters coming down that runway right at you. I think today we'll maybe be in a fully loaded A-10 or something. Garen mentioned it's warm outside. I think it's hot outside, and we're going to make it even hotter with a hot show for you today.
That's right.
We've got some great information for you, and we've got a Gulf War veteran. Remember Gulf War? You know, I looked at that the other day and it just popped into my head. People could have come on active duty at the start of the Gulf War and be retired from the military now. And that warped my brain. Tells me, well, Glenn, you're really getting old.
Well, you know, as always, folks, we know you look forward to our interesting segments and interviews, so let's get started with a Bosun's Call. On the phone with us right now, we have your commander of Coast Guard Station Port Canaveral, Commander B. Perry. How you doing this morning, Commander?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time out from your Saturday, because I know you got a busy family life, and gosh, throughout the week you're always busy out there at the station. What can you share with our listeners as to the happenings out there recently?
Well, I'll tell you, recently, last night we had a case offshore here just off of Cocoa Beach. There was 5 flares spotted offshore, so our guys were up all night searching. Apparently it was a false call, but we searched all throughout the night with help of Air Station Clearwater. Sent over a helicopter and continued searching a little bit this morning. Apparently it was probably someone just shooting off an expired flare, or it could have been somebody on the pier shooting off Roman candles. But any of those calls that come in, you know, we treat it like a real thing, and you go out there and do the best you can.
Commander, what should a boater do if they have an expired flare? You obviously don't want to launch it out on the water. What do you do with them?
Right. The best thing to do if you have expired flares is you can always bring them by the Coast Guard station and turn them in here, or even at a local fire department. A lot of fire departments will take them for you. The main thing is to make sure that you have up-to-date flares, so if that time comes, you know they're going to work. But shooting them off when you're offshore just to burn them off, it spins us up, meaning that we go all out, because you can't tell the difference, obviously.
Of course.
If you find the person who was shooting the flares, we'll call it in this instance, is there a fine for that?
No, sir. It'd be some stern education, I would call it.
Oh, sink their boat?
We would find out, make sure there was no distress if we did locate the boat, and then educate the person on, the money and the cost to spin up a helicopter and a boat crew overnight. Like right now, I've got all my crew resting in the racks. They're sleeping it off from all night of searching. So, you could put others at risk if there was a real case, and these guys have, been out for a false alert all night.
Well, now your station out there, Port Canaveral, is secured. Let's say some boaters are listening to this and they see that the date on their flares is coming up for expiration. Do they just drive up to the gate and tell you, hit the call button and say that they want to turn in?
Yes, just come up to the gate, tell the watchstander, and explain the situation. Say, I have some expired flares I would like to get rid of or whatnot, and we would take it from there.
Okay, now you mentioned that you used quite a few assets, even brought a helo over from the Gulf Coast of Florida. That is incredibly expensive, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours for them just to get on scene, and then their burn time in the air, you know. So, and then they came back this morning. So yes, it was a pretty expensive case, but you know, if it happened to be real and you save a life, then you know.
It's all worth it, of course.
Right.
That's your mission. Hey, what about that rocket that flew off the other day? I guess you guys probably participated in that as usual
Yes,
as well.
We provided offshore security for that. With the low ceiling, I know everybody out there that was watching didn't get to see it for long, but we sure felt it here at the station. It was rattling the windows. And,
Yeah, that's a big one.
It was a great launch with a little bit delay, but we had 3 boats out there providing security. Because the time of launch in the morning like that, you know, we get a lot of fishermen heading out, so we try not to inconvenience them too bad. So we go out and just kind of head them to the south until the launch is over, and everything went smooth.
Kind of clear the zone so if anything does happen with the rocket, nobody else on the water gets hurt?
Right. We have liaisons that work directly with the Air Force, and we figure out the trajectory and the launch angle and all that, and then we secure an area for the launch. They're great people to work with over there at the 45th, and we've got a really good relationship with them. So.
Well, I think just in the couple minutes we've been talking, all of our regular listeners should have a better appreciation of just how involved in the local area the Coast Guard is. I mean, it's pretty amazing that you do as much as you do with the crew that you have. And you know, I was at the Military Affairs Council, of course I'm on the board there, and you know, you made an interesting point, and that is while Patrick Air Force Base, as you know, Glenn, is suffering the sequestration furloughs,
Oh, yeah.
you don't have any civilian, or what do you call them, GS grade workers at your station.
Right. Our folks are all active duty or reserve. The only civilian employees would be the employees that work in the exchange. We have a small exchange on base, but they're a total part of a different department.
Right.
As far as civilian employees, GS rated employees, we don't have any of those on the station. So we were talking a little bit about furloughs in the civilian force, and you know, cutting back work hours and things like that, and. That's not the case here. We actually, with sequestration, causes us to pick up the workload.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I understand you're also the receiver of some good news. Heard it through the grapevine that you might have just recently been promoted. Is that true?
Yes, sir. I promoted to Chief Warrant Officer 4.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. It was a career goal of mine, so I'm happy to reach that. And
Wearing that chevron on your lapel very proudly too.
thank you.
And Captain Passarelli is now a captain too, so there's some real good things happening out there.
Good things. And then my executive officer, Lane Marshburn, he made senior chief, so we've all been doing something right around here.
Yeah.
Hey, good place to be assigned, I guess.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well.
Well, you've earned it, I know that. Tell us a little bit about the birthday celebration coming up.
Right. I want to say one thing. Thanks to all the folks out there that are helping us, the Military Affairs Council that you mentioned earlier, the Navy League, AVET Project. Kim's been a big help. Fish Lips, the Coast Guard Auxiliary. All these folks are helping us because on August 3rd, here at the Coast Guard Station, we're going to celebrate Coast Guard's birthday, which is actually on August 4th. But we're going to celebrate it on that Saturday, and it's 223 years of Coast Guard service. So
Wow.
quite a long time.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
We're planning a big event here with a cookout and bouncy houses for the kids. Looks like we're going to be lucky enough to have both of the ships in, so that the Vigilant and the Confidence will be here giving ship tours to folks that come out. We're really looking forward to it. We hope we had good weather that day, and it should be an exciting event.
Well, yeah, we want to make sure that everybody that's involved, past or present with the Coast Guard, partakes, right?
Right. Anybody that wants to come out, honestly, we're not going to turn you away. We would say that active duty reserves and their families are free to get in. If anybody else wants to stop by and make a donation, that's greatly appreciated. There's folks there that'll help you out with that with the Navy League and the AVET Project. But we'd like to have the Air Force folks here because we participated in their junior enlisted picnic that the Military Affairs put on down in Patrick, and that was a great event.
Yeah, it sure was. Well, Commander, thank you for sharing a few minutes with us. I know it's been a while since we had a bosun's call, but I really appreciate you taking the time because, as you said, you were even busy last night. So, sir, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon down the road.
Great. Thanks for having me. One more thing I'd like to say is if you go to uscg.mil, you can kind of stay up with some of the events going on in the Coast Guard. And also, if you're looking for information on that boating safety stuff and give you tips on how to get rid of flares and how to make sure you inspect your flares and life jackets and so forth, go to cgaux.org. That's the Coast Guard Auxiliary's website. You can find a local boating class, and it'll help you out with all kinds of things from safety to navigation and just general taking care of your boat.
Outstanding. I'm glad you mentioned that. cgaux.com or .org. cgaux.org. And what was the other web address?
uscg.mil, and there's a Coast Guard compass on there, and you can see what's going on throughout the Coast Guard. For instance, just south of here, we intercepted 100 kilograms of cocaine and several bales of marijuana just south of Sebastian. So doing some good things, and there's some great stories online you can read about.
Outstanding. Sir, thanks again. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Garen. Thanks, Glenn. Have a good day.
You bet.
You too. Well, as always, I mean, it's incredible to get that kind of feedback from our local commander.
Yeah, and I just have to throw in a quick comment. I had a client yesterday who asked me, is the Coast Guard part of the military?
Well,
and they've only been for 223 years, so I guess they are.
Exactly. I mean, they're veterans. When they get out, they enjoy all the benefits, and but they're kind of a hybrid, you know.
Well, yeah, but they have always been recognized as veterans.
Yeah, but even back in your day, the Coast Guard was in the waters off Vietnam.
Well, exactly. Back in my day.
Okay, and they're over there in the Persian Gulf area as well, and Commander Perry has told us about that, and we'll probably get some more information from a future bosun's call regarding some of those issues. But folks, you just heard. Now listen, these guys and gals are dedicated to their mission, and they were out there last night, all night, searching for somebody that was, they thought, in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you use your brain.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, so we got a lot to cover here. We know we wanted to talk about Persian Gulf War illness because that's a topic that's kind of like it's gone by the wayside, you know.
Well, and there's probably a good reason for that.
Well, the whole undiagnosed moniker.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing I want to share, because we've got a great in-studio guest here, and we'll talk with him in just a moment, probably about some of these very same issues. Secretary Shinseki, even though a lot of people are on his back to resign and all this jazz, he's done some really good things while he's been in office. And one of them is opening up what's called a presumptive illness. Presumptive in Vietnam terms, what did that mean?
Well, in Vietnam terms, that's if you had boots on the ground in Vietnam, then you're presumed to have been exposed to herbicides commonly called Agent Orange. And there's a whole list of disabilities that if unfortunately you become afflicted with them, that you will be service connected, and the percentage will be based on how severe it is. We're talking prostate cancer and lung cancer,
diabetes,
and diabetes type 2, and a whole list of skin cancers. And there's some that probably you'll never qualify for, but ischemic heart disease was
that's
just added,
one.
And that's a biggie.
And that's any heart disorder outside of a valvular or hypertensive disorder.
Correct.
So it covers a lot of ground, folks. If you know a Vietnam vet who is being followed by a cardiologist for heart problems, and they had boots on the ground, what should they do, Glenn?
They should come to my office and let us help file the claim. Call first, and we'll try and tell you what kind of evidence we'd like for you to bring if you're in possession of that evidence. If not, we'll work it from there anyway. And of course, we're out in the County Government Center in Bravo building on the first floor. Can't miss where we're at. There's all kinds of signs with arrows pointing veteran services this way, because our clients have a tendency to go in the first office that's open, which isn't us. And we didn't put the signs up, our mates down the hallway did. And
so they'd stop bugging them.
That's right.
Because
and we're a walk-in service. We're open 8 to 4:30 Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and we close for client business at noon on Wednesdays and Fridays, so we can catch up on all the business we do the rest of the time.
But Glenn, here's the caveat. I mean, it costs quite a bit of money to be seen at your office. How much do you charge?
Well, we have a great deal for our listeners out there. It's free. And it's always free.
Our favorite word, free.
Yay.
See, free representation at the County Veteran Service Office. And Glenn, before we get to Scott, and I'm chomping at the bit to do that, but you're not long for our supervisor of Brevard County Veteran Service Office.
31 July, but who's counting? I think that's 11 days if my clock's right.
So in 11 days, my good friend and co-host Glenn McGuffey is going to be finally retiring for the, second time now?
Yeah, well, I'll be actually a triple dipper. I'll be retired from the Air Force on Social Security and then retired from the county.
Outstanding. So, folks, if you want, now everybody in his office is credentialed and qualified. I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction, but Glenn's going to be leaving soon. If he's impacted your life in some way, would you please just stop by and say hello and say, happy trails to Glenn before he actually does close that door for the last time. Okay, listen, we bring you guests that are interesting and important, particularly in our community here. If you're listening to American Warrior Radio out in Missoula, Montana, or Vermont, or wherever you might be, we really appreciate it. And when we bring you guests, we want to try and bring people that have a story to tell. Well, I have somebody just like that today. We have with us a retired Army veteran, Scott Wilson, who, let me share with you a little bit. He's been a steadfast volunteer with AVET Project for a long time.
Hoorah!
That's right, and he holds several other positions. I'll let him speak. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for joining us on American Warrior Radio.
Thank you, Garen and Glenn.
Tell us, first of all, where were you born? Give us a little biographical thumbnail sketch, when you were in service, what you did, and all that.
I was born in West Palm Beach, Florida. I grew up there, and that's where I went into service from. And actually,
you're the native Floridian.
Yeah, I'm the one. I'm the
Right.
one.
The
Yes.
one and only.
And actually, before I went into service in my delayed entry time, my family sold their house in West Palm, and they moved up here because my dad got a position up here in the Melbourne area. So I was actually a paramedic at the time, and I worked for the old Harbor City Ambulance.
I'll be dang.
So I spent about 6 months with the old Harbor City Ambulance before I actually went on active duty.
And you mentioned your father. His name
Is Matt Wilson.
Now, this gentleman has been a longtime volunteer for AVET Project as well as and your other family members.
Yes.
So we really appreciate that. So you moved up here because your dad got a job, and you were working as an EMT with Harbor City Ambulance.
Right.
And then what happened?
Then, excuse me, I went on active duty, and I spent a number of years in before I was medically retired. While I was on active duty,
What was your MOS to start with?
Actually, my MOS was I was an airborne ranger combat medic, but I also held qualifications as a flight medic, a diver, and my last 4 years was as a recruiter.
Interesting
So-
career path.
Yeah,
Wow.
I followed a wild ride of things, but I wouldn't ever give it up. And I love that when you guys said that this was an A-10, because I love that close air support in combat. That was always, when we saw that Warthog come in, we knew we were happy because they cleared the way for us.
Well, tell us a little bit about that, because you are a PGW vet yourself.
Right. I was in the first Gulf War, and being in a special operations unit my entire time in the Army, we worked with all branches of service, obviously. We did what was needed. We went where we were needed, where we were called, anytime. And we were in the Gulf War from the very earliest days. I mean, we were probably less than 1,000 troops in country when we got there.
As the buildup was taking place.
Correct. And that
Okay.
was before the 30th of August, and the invasion was on the 2nd of August into Kuwait.
Okay.
And we were rangers. Our job was to go in and watch and give sit reps, give these reports back to allow the people to be able to make a game plan.
What's a sit rep?
Situation report. We were showing and we were giving back information to the commands about how many troops, what they had, what they were doing, what we thought was going on, what maybe we had as plan of actions for the command's intelligence, counterintelligence at any point in time.
Which
And-
is interesting because we've had a guest on in the past, Eric Hoppenbauer, who, by the way, is now working with our good friend and longtime AVET project supporter, Brian Jaskowitz, also retired Army from Space Coast Intelligence Solutions. So Eric, remember Eric?
Yep.
And he was telling us about his involvement most recently as an intel officer and what have you. So that's what you were doing initially, was kind of gauging the enemy or gauging our forces? What?
Gauging the enemy. We were all about the enemy because we never knew what was going on behind us. We lived in a hole in the ground.
So
Interesting.
you were out getting dirty and hiding from the enemy and gathering the intel information and then reporting that back to
Exactly.
Bosun.
We were giving just information back that we saw. And we never knew that in our day-to-day operations with our unit, when we went out in the field, we went back and we just reported what we saw, because we could normally be in the field anywhere from 10 to 45 days. And we would just go back and give intelligence reports. We would give a report, okay, this is what we saw. And being a small 40-person team, we would go back and give our reports, and I was the medic. I was the lone medic, so I was always in the field, single. I didn't care. I was trained to do this, and why would I want to sit back in the rear and, do a police call, cut the grass, or anything else? I was there. I was constantly training and doing something I loved, being in the Army.
Well, I'm a dummy. 40 people, is that a platoon? What kind of...
Actually, it was a small operations unit.
Okay, small operations unit. Folks, we're going to carry Scott over after the break. We're coming to the bottom of the hour, so I don't want you to go anywhere, okay? Because after we return, Glenn, we're going to give something out.
Oh, absolutely, and it's free.
That's
My
right.
favorite word.
It's an AVET Project prize pack. Okay, if you have not won before, when we come back from the break, after I do the little, or Glenn does a little re-intro, the first caller, this is after the break, is going to win an AVET Project prize pack, and then we'll get back to this interesting interview with a longtime AVET Project supporter and generally good guy, and we'll talk about some of the other activities he does after the break here on American Warrior Radio. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
631-1300.